This is an adventure fantasy tale about a young man named Gran and many others. Says they traverse the skies and their adventurous journey to a legendary island. You live some remote island where farming is in full bloom. He also works quite hard and is especially proficient at while he cuts them up one by one. His friend named Aaron just sits there and talks about how Gran just keeps moving forward whenever he's working on the task. As this small talk was going on, a cute yet fantastic creature named Vern returns with Aaron's father. He's Gran companion and as I said before don't call them a lizard though. Okay, so Vern and Gran are about to enjoy some apples given to them by Aaron's dad for helping him out with the work. But that's when they witness a gigantic battleship in the sky. As they're wondering why a battleship is flying over their island, of all places, the ship suddenly explodes from one side, and out falls a glistening object or perhaps an individual. It falls into the forest, but the Gran and Vern instantly rush to the forest. Gran wanted to see for himself what fell there. They search throughout the forest, come across a few broken fragments of the battleship, and finally encounter a young lying next to the tree. The glistening light bed seen falling in the forest was actually emitting from her chest. So they wake her up. The girl suddenly gets all nervous and scared. But Gran and Vern's friendly expressions let her ease up, and then she properly introduces herself. Her name is Lyria. She was confined in a dark room for a painfully long period of time, that is, until an individual named Catalina helped her escape. However, since then, both her and Catalina are being chased by the authorities from the Empire. And surely enough, before their conversation could end, a couple of fully armored soldiers show up. In order to get Lyria, Gran uses his swords to wreck them, but one of them manages the shooter flare into the sky to give the other soldiers the signal. An armored female knight also catches the signal and rushes toward the location. Now Gran, Lyria, and Vern were running with all their might as the soldiers continued to surround them. Fortunately, that woman from before catches up and then single-handedly destroys all of the soldiers. Her name is Catalina, and she's the one who explained the situation with Lyria. As it turns out, Lyria was being used as an experiment for a period of time, but one day, the extent of her powers turned out to be too dangerous, so she was confined. From there on out, she was living a life of complete loneliness. Until, of course, Catalina broke her out of that solitary confinement. Now Catalina and Lyria were going to be on their way, since more and more soldiers would continue to chase them. But Gran states that he'll help them out as well. Together they try to escape from the grasp of the Imperial Army, and even save a father and his daughter from the soldiers. However, before long, they're confronted by a military captain named Palmer and his troops. He summons a four-headed violent dragon named Hydra. Even Gran, the protagonist themselves, couldn't handle the menacing CGI. Gran tries to run away, but the Hydra surrounds him with flames and then stomps the life out of him using his claws. That's right, Gran Pike literally dies. Vern desperately calls out his name, but there's no answer. How could there be? Gran was already dead. Vern starts crying cattle in his shop and asks for Lyria. She lets out tears, so she declares that Gran was protecting her. She uses the power of the glistening crystal on her chest and consciously grants it to Gran. Just like that, life is seen returning to Gran's eyes. Literally, his power was being transferred to him. That despicable. Are you singing another crystal to respect Lyria? But things are alright. Gran has already returned back to life. The man himself gradually gets up, realizes that something's different about him, and then alongside Lyria, he starts giving off the same aura as that crystal. Together they summon a legendary black dragon called Bahamut. And everyone is taken aback by the comment's glorious CGI. The captain is shocked out of his living daylights. He couldn't comprehend the presence and simply said, "What is that thing?" The one that he did that moment. He ordered uses Dragon Hydra to use flame, but it wasn't very effective. Bahamut then uses a hyper beam and destroys most of the Imperial Army, including Hydra. It was super effective. The captain is scared enough to pee his pants, and so he chooses to play. The battle was over. Perfect. Mariu withdraws Bahamut's soul and her crystal. But suddenly Gran collapses. While he's unconscious, he recalls memories from his past, how his father used to talk about all these islands. The island of fire, the island of wind, the island of the primal beasts, and much more. Looks like his father is also waiting for him at a certain island, and so that's why Gran always had the goal. Burning through the sky. His friend Aaron tells him it's all nonsense. There's no other islands, but Gran thinks otherwise. An interesting fact about the world building and the sea epic is that the islands are literally floating in the sky. When Gran wakes up, he's greeted by Lyria, who casually proceeds to hug. Men touch him all over his chest. The man gets embarrassed since he had no shirt on at the moment. All someone to the room. He's then told about what exactly happened back there, and how thankfully none of the villagers were hurt. Catalina also gives some context about Liberty's power, how she's able to control primal beasts anymore, Ordinarily resurrecting a person back to life is downright impossible, but because of the unusual nature of Hilarious' power, he was brought back to life. Even the power of commanding primal beasts is only reserved for India. This asshole's, however, for some odd reason she has it. Her existence is shrouded in mystery, and even she herself has no idea who she is. The last for Gran's resurrection, since they reassured her power. The two of them now have the same life force, which is why they can't stay apart from each other. This meant that Gran would have to accompany them on their travels. Their ultimate destination is the island of Astrals, to be more precise, the island of primal beasts. Little did they know, the young man was yearning for a chance like this. The next morning, he and Vern leave together with Leary and Catalina on an old aircraft after bidding the village farewell. Though has there ever been? Catalina excelled at a lot of things, but she certainly wasn't a good pilot. Their aircraft goes out of control, and they forcibly land on the nearby island. A man named Rockman witnesses the utterly sadness, gastric condition their aircraft was in, and can't help but and the passengers for not taking care of their craft. He also tells Catalina to at least get some licensed pilot training. Now the gang had no choice but to explore the island. They ventured the city to explore and do some shopping. All Catalina goes to check if there's an aircraft or airship they can get from the airship station. Unfortunately, all of them are busy at the moment. Well, I have to wait a few days at the earliest. Gran and the others come across Rackman once again. He properly introduces himself this time and also shows them that he's currently working on repairing their aircraft. Though that's when two quirky, yet also shabby individuals pop up with apples. As it turns out, they were with the Imperial Army. First Grand and the others run. On their corner, Grand uses sword attack and then escapes, and I conveniently yells against some help from a mysterious lady who just used magic from a considerable distance. Rightman also helped them out. Later they discussed their current situation and realized that they would need a helmsman since they were in a cafeteria. Two other customers happened listening on their conversation and instantly recommended someone named Rackman. Now since the gang was already familiar with the gang, they're on their way to invite him, though before they could find Rackman, they got into some trouble with the Imperial Army. Luckily, Rackman first casually uses his rifle to create a distraction, helps them escape through a hidden tunnel, and then takes them to his place. Once there, they request him to be their helmsman, but Rackman ends up refusing. As it turns out, Rackman has resolved to not go anywhere without his dear ship, Grand Cypher. It's a ship that he has dedicated his entire life to building. However, since it became unable to fly, Rackman also moved on from flying, since he doesn't want to fly away without his beloved Grand Cypher. Bran and the elders understand his reason and don't try to push him. However, there was another pressing matter that they had to deal with. The Imperial Army's general that run away from just before is actually planning on destroying the island. They have to not only inform the common folk, but also have to make an effort to evade the attack. The enemy general is using a dragon that is revered as the goddess of the wind. It's creating insane hurricanes throughout the island, and the general has also destroyed the last airship available to them. Maria then states that they might be able to subdue that dragon, but they'll have to be close enough first. This is where Rackman becomes the man. He results in the ship awakens as well. The man navigates to the violent wind waves until they finally reach the goddess of the wind, the dragon named Tiamat. Tiamat has been corrupted, which is why even when they retrace the sins, sincerely communicate with her, it's of no use. And someone all came down the Gran Leary and Velves, Gran and the power of the legendary dragon Bahamut, and tells him to go destroy Tiamat Crystal, as that's the only way to stop the havoc. Grim is successful, and once the corruption round Tiamat war zone, the wind begins to disappear. Though before she vanishes, she presents Lirio with a crystal as a gift. The day is saved. Later Gran meets Rackman and once again asks him to be their helmsman. Well, to be fair, Rackman had no reason to refuse, since the ship was already up and running. Though the man asks Gran about their destination, where does he want to go? Gran simply states the land of the Astrals. Obviously, Rackman is shocked. That island is the island of the primal beasts. He asks Gran why he wants to go there, to which Gran replies that his dad is waiting there for him. Hearing this, Rock tells Gran that he always thought the island of Astros didn't actually exist, but since it's there, he also wants to check it out for himself, and so he shakes Gran's hand and states that he'll be their helmsman. Just like that, the gang send out to the next island on their path. This island is well known for its ever-flowing river of magma and the prosperous steel industry. They set out to do some shopping, but barely anyone is seen outside their homes. For some unknown reason, there was a quarantine, though a restaurant was still bustling with people there for a nice dinner, but are quickly introduced to a sturdy man who claims to be a secret agent for the island's government. He knows Gran and the others saved the island of Port Breeze